This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Bruce Norris, and today our special guest is Mike Cantu. Mike Cantu wears a lot of hats in the real estate world. He's a wholesaler, a flipper, occasional builder, and property manager of his own portfolio of well-selected rentals. He's also has trained other people and is still, after all this time, a student. And Mike, welcome back to our show.
Pleasure to be here, Bruce.
On the way here, for whatever reason, the radio station mentioned that Mick Jagger birthday today. He's 76 and still on tour. And I just thought, oh my gosh, and I started thinking, man, I'm 66 and I'm going to interview you. And I don't think of you as being up there either. It's just like, where'd the time go?
Bruce, I thought I would be done a long time ago with this game, but I love the game that I play. So here I am, still up to my eyeballs in it. And, as a youngster, I always thought I'd be done a long time ago, but no, I thoroughly enjoy what I do and making deals and dealing with the people that I deal with. So yeah, that'll probably, unless something major happens here, I see that forever.
Yeah. Well, that's what's fun about having choices. You can
yes,
also choose the same thing.
Right. No, it's the thrill of the score. Anymore, it's not so much the money. It's I do deals with close friends of mine, and seeing them get ahead financially and getting equity into their life. It's just very satisfying. And once again, it's the thrill of the score. It's not so much, it's just making a deal. Two humans agreeing on it, smiling, shaking hands, and being satisfied. I just absolutely love that.
When we had Jim Rohn as a guest speaker, I was sitting next to somebody, and he was in his 70s. I was asked, wonder why you think he still does this? And after the third standing ovation inside of the first hour, I looked over there and I said, I think you just found out why he still does it.
Yes, and seeing other people's lives change, Bruce, I get such a kick out of that. Watching somebody's life take a turn for the better and knowing that I had a piece of helping that's great.
Yeah, that's motivation for me for teaching for sure. Just I get a big kick out of that. So what was your original introduction into this real estate investing world? When did you get started, and who was the person that got you into it?
I was 19 years old, Bruce. I was watching late night TV. I know it was after midnight, so I was probably very easily to influence. But I remember watching, it was a Robert Allen half-hour infomercial. It was leading up to a free introductory to where they did the upsell for the class. And what sold me on it, it was teenager, 19, 18 years old, sitting on a surfboard, and they were interviewing him. Whoever had the camera was farther out than he was, so you saw the backdrop, which was Mission Beach in San Diego, where a good friend of mine, Chuck, lived. And I thought, I know that beach. I know that house, and that house. But what really got me was when the kid said, last year I was just a loser surfer, had no money. This year I've got a net worth of over $1 million. And, of course, I sucked it up, every bit of it, and I thought, now I'm going to have that same story. And sure enough, we went to the freebie class. I talked my roommate into driving. I didn't have enough gas to get there, so we drove his car. And I took notes, but afterwards it was a 2-day weekend class. So it was going to be a life changer, and everything you wanted was going to happen. But it was $500. We didn't have even close to that between us, so we waited till the end. And when everyone was gone, we told the lady what we were going to do. We were going to sign up for the class. She smiled. We said, but here's the deal. We need a 2-for-1 discount. We're only going to use one book, one chair. We'll timeshare it. We'll sit in the back row not to disturb anybody. And she went and had a discussion, said, okay. Then as soon as she came back, we hit her up for a AAA discount of $50. Neither one of us had a AAA card. Then we got her for a $50 good student discount. We tried for $50 a piece. We were both C students in community college. And the last one, Jimco, was the big membership store. She actually gave us, I believe, a $50 gym code discount because Chuck had a card, but she cut us off at $350. So,
So you went from $1,000 to $350.
Yeah, exactly. $175 a piece. And they actually gave us 2 chairs and 2 manuals. They forgot about our deal, and I thought, this is great.
Well, they didn't even know you didn't need a chair. You spent a lot of time in the back.
Right. Well, the irony of this whole thing is we spent 2 days learning 101 ways to buy real estate with no money down. And on the way home that night, I asked Chuck, I said, any idea what that mortgage thing was they talked about all weekend? And Chuck said, no, I was hoping you knew. So we learned 101 ways to buy real estate, but didn't know what a mortgage was.
But I guess it started, obviously it started something. I apparently already knew how to negotiate, though.
I wanted it, Bruce. And once again, over, around, under, whatever it takes. And it was mission accomplished all of a sudden. I was very satisfied that Saturday morning thinking we pulled this off.
Absolutely. Well, okay. Well, where in the heck did that start? That's not a normal skill set to enter at 19. So where did that come from?
It was the infomercial. I truly believe, Bruce, I was going to be worth $1 million in 12 months. Why on earth would I be doing something else?
So you just had to get the yes answer. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, they set that hook so hard there was no removing it. I think that hook is still set, Bruce.
As is the negotiating skill too. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
How soon did Mick Blackwell enter your real estate life?
He was actually at the same time. That summer, that was the first summer I had off. I was, from the time I was 16 until 21, I was on the Pepsi skateboard team, and that was my full-time job. We did assemblies at elementary and junior high schools and had weekend stuff all the time. But 1978, they passed Proposition 13. Everybody knows that as property tax, but it also cut out summer school, which was my Monday through Friday bread and butter, skateboarding for Pepsi. And I actually went to work for Mick. He paid me $4.50 an hour. So I went from a couple $100 a day down to, $4.50, about $36 a day. And I never worked so hard in all my life. And I quizzed him up and down every day, all day. He was building houses. How much does this cost? What'd you pay for the land? What are you paying that guy over there? And all I heard all day long was, shut up and get back to work. You asked too many questions. But it got to the point where he would pick me up at 6 a.m. He would come knock on my window, and I had no choice but to go to work. Once I said yes, I would work for him. Even if I tried to call in sick, he'd be looking at me saying, I don't think you're sick, let's go. But I asked lots of questions. I started writing down questions to where I just annoyed him to no end, because I know he was thinking about the day in the morning, getting how it was going to unfold, and I've got a list of written questions. And so I just asked a lot of questions, Bruce. I was very curious. And when I asked Mick the overall, I said the bottom line on those 2 deals, he paid $5,000 a lot, spent $25,000 in materials and labor, was into each house $30,000 and sold them for $60,000, and he did it in 60 days, start to finish. Wow. I was very impressed, and I realized he's making $1,000 a day, and I'm making $36 a day. But we're going to have to do some leveling out here.
Now, you were only working half days, as I recall, with Mick, though.
Yeah. That I remember Mick said, "Oh, okay, you're gonna like working around here. We only work half days." And I smiled and I said, "Now we're talking. I like this guy." And he said, "It doesn't matter if it's the first 12 hours, the last 12 hours, or the 12 hours right out of the middle." And that's to this day, that's Mick's idea of a half day. He still goes half days quite often, and I think he's just like the ever-ready rabbit. They wind him up, and he goes.
Your upbringing, though, that wasn't unfamiliar territory, really.
What was that?
I said, I think because of your upbringing, hard work or dedication wasn't new to you.
Oh, no. And my dad, I grew up with military discipline. We had a blended family from 3rd grade on. There were 7 kids, 2 adults, and 1,100 square feet. And by the time I was in 5th grade, I had been assigned every single household chore because of my behavior. Nobody else had anything to do. I took out the trash cans. Brought them in on Mondays. I went to the laundromat with my stepmom on Fridays. We had 2 dogs. They were not mine. They were my stepbrothers and sisters. I had to clean up after the dogs. I had to mow the yard, empty the kitchen trash. Eventually, I had all the chores. So no, I was, and my dad being military, there was no backing off on the discipline. So
you told me your story one time about you didn't make your bed one time.
Oh yeah, that was common knowledge. Don't make your bed. Don't expect sheets and a blanket when you come home. And sure enough, I didn't. They just scooped it up, put it in their bedroom, and locked their door, and that was the end of that. And that actually happened a couple of times.
I guess you learned. Go.
Yeah, and there was no negotiating that back. I tried. I was willing to do favors. I was willing to do extra work. Nope, you didn't make your bed.
How long was the penance for that? Was it just a day or was it a week?
Oh, yeah, it was just that night.
Oh, okay.
You got the stuff back the next day.
Okay. Thought maybe you had to go buy your own blanket and sheet.
Well, the first time I did it, Bruce, was the middle of winter, and I ended up sleeping in a coat and jeans and everything else, thinking and no pillow. I wadded up a bunch of clothes, and I thought, I don't like this. But I got the message. And Bruce, to this day, I make my bed. I made my bed this morning, and I spent extra time thinking, okay, it's going to be waiting for me when I come back in 10 days. But every day I make the bed.
If someone was observing you in your school years, were there any signs of being an entrepreneur at that stage?
Absolutely, Bruce. See, I grew up in a neighborhood. I didn't know we were lacking anything because I hadn't been exposed to anything. I'd never felt central heat and air. We had the wall heater and no air conditioner of any. We actually had one fan in the house for 11 people, so that wasn't that wasn't great or anything. But no, in 3rd grade, I realized if I could take my lunch money and go to I got 35 cents for lunch, and I could go to 7-Eleven and buy a pack of Starburst for $0.25. And there was 11 Starbursts in there, and I would sell them for $0.05 a piece and turn my 25 cents into about 50 cents because I always ate a couple of them to get sales started. So, yeah, I unwrapped them real slow in front of other people and always did a red one. And so yes, I was selling candy in 3rd grade, and yes, then there was a big apartment complex, about 600 units that they had put in, and it was across the street from a big park. And so on a regular basis, we had bottle drives for worthy causes, where we would have a story and fill up the wagon with bottles, go around the corner it was Whitefront where we cashed them in, and we always had ices and yo-yos and all the kids' good stuff in the summertime from our bottle drives.
Okay, I recall some of that in your past. Now, so between the late 70s and the late 80s, you gradually went from being an employee of Mick to I would think you became partner on deals for sure.
Yes, we actually had kind of a falling out, and I ran into him in Conley Hardware Store, and we were on opposite aisles talking over the aisle, and he asked me what I'd been up to, and I proudly told him that I was in real estate, that I had done 2 deals, and we hadn't talked for a while, and he said, let me come around the aisle and talk to you about it. And I wasn't stupid. He came around to my side. I went around to his side, and we just swapped places. I said, Blackwell, I know you want a piece of me. And he said, you're damn right I do. I said, okay. So we talked through. He actually cleared some products out of the way so we could have a face-to-face, one aisle to the other.
I gather you came to a negotiated partnership somehow.
It ended where he said, I've got some money, and if you've got a real deal, give me a call. And the next day I called him on a trustee sale, and we bought a house on Sepulveda Street in San Bernardino. The opening bid was 13. We took it all the way up to 16, and we were the high bidder, off and running. And I thought, okay,
yeah,
we're partners.
Very cool. Now you got
and that was the first of hundreds that we did together.
Absolutely. That's a great story. Now you got involved in building and creating lots, and that. So take me to let's say the late 80s, maybe 1990. That stuff kind of came to a halt.
Yes. Now, see the big influence. There was a book that came out. It was called The Art of the Deal by this guy named Donald Trump.
Okay.
And I bought that book and I read it, and I remember I finished it and I thought, oh no, I can't be on the last page. I'm just going to start over. And I read it a second time, and I thought I'm going to be the West Coast version of the developer that he was. And I had big plans, but that book actually just lit a fire in me. And I thought, okay, a lot is possible after reading that book. I sincerely believed it. And I did, Mick was always a builder, so we started building houses in the high desert. And I had a couple of friends that were building apartment buildings in West LA, the Brentwood, Westwood area. And we ended up doing condo projects there, several infill projects. I did lots of building with Mick up in the high desert. And then I realized in the LA game, what I thought was the best money was taking a lot, getting it ready to build, ready to pull permit stage with the condo map in place, and developers lined up with millions just waving their money, wanting to buy them. And we flipped a couple of those deals. I thought, back then, the first one we flipped was for $300,000 more than we were into it. And the same week, we sold another project for $100,000. And I thought, okay, now this is how you do this business.
Mm-hmm.
Never had another week like that since, but that was a good week. And nope, I was off and running. And I remember at 29 years old, looking at all the projects I had, I thought I just got to get across the finish line. I'm done at 30, and I'll figure out the rest of my life. And then the economy dropped off a cliff. I spent the next 18 months, hardest 18 months of my life, cleaning up one mess after another. But when all was said and done, I had cleaned up the mess and was still around and learned a lot of lessons that to this day shape the way I do business.
Well, there was an interesting conversation and that's why I brought this up. If there was ever a thought of just saying, okay, we don't have to finish this, we can just walk. You and Mick had an interesting conversation about that.
I actually asked Mick, I suggested that we just bankrupt the corporation that had all this debt and we could walk away from it. And I remember watching Mick's face just wad up slowly like a piece of tinfoil. And in the most serious tone of voice I had ever heard him, he said, we signed a promissory note, and the first sentence on that note was, I promise to pay. And he said, these are people that took a leap of faith with us, that put aside some of their hard-earned money for a better tomorrow to grow it, and they entrusted it to us, and I'm not going back to them with a story, and neither are you. What's your next plan? What's plan B? And we worked through it, and looking back, I think, that in itself was a huge lesson there, that, you got to take care of the people that trust you and make it happen. That I actually gave the lecture yesterday. The term self-made came up, and I said, now, very, very few people I know that I've ever met that are self-made were truly self-made by themselves. It's a whole bunch of people involved, and the key people in my life. And looking back, I absolutely acknowledge that. And once again, that money that was paid back came back many times over, offered up to do deals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I think anyone facing down what seems to be an impossible task in real estate, especially during a downturn, should really listen to what you just said, because sticking with that took a lot of guts. You had exactly the wrong inventory. Lots and land. I mean, come on.
Wait. Encumbered land, encumbered unimproved land. We had lots of that. So, yeah, it was all the way down the totem pole of what you don't want. We were the base of it.
Yeah, just to stick that out. And Mick is right. The only way you make it through that is you don't have an alternative, I can just get out of jail free card. You have to face it. And
going through what we did, Bruce, I learned so much in that 18-month period, because land in itself is a different animal. You don't go to the bank and put your 10 or 20% down and get a great loan. It's all about the seller financing, and I was dealing with a lot of private people and just bring the problem to the table. And in the end, everybody worked everything out to where it seemed like every day was a negotiation with somebody over something to get it across the finish line. And yeah, even the stuff we got behind on, everybody was made whole. Everybody got their interest. And looking back, I just smile over that, thinking that was a major accomplishment. And like I said, that shapes the way I do business to this day, Bruce, that realizing that After that experience, I studied markets, I studied the cycles, and since then I've been 100% right on the money, never missed it by a minute, because I figured out the market does one of three things, and it's going to go up, down, or stay the same. And if you conduct your affairs with that in mind, you should be okay. Early on, I had no idea what a down market was about, and that it could possibly, I couldn't imagine it leveling off or actually going down.
Well, we didn't have one. I mean, you got started. We really didn't even have a downturn when interest rates went nuts. So the early 80s that had a really high interest rate, the prices didn't crash. It was just an interesting time. But yeah, that was you and I both experienced something similar. I was in Palm Springs with 7 custom homes with a mindset of I'm not walking away, and it was the best thing I could have ever done for myself too.
Yeah, like I said, Bruce, I'm totally pleased that I did that. And for 18 months during that entire time, we were doing a big subdivision in the high desert. And I think that was 60-something lots. No, it was 46 lots. They were 2.5-acre lots. I had been doing lot splits and taking 10 acres, chopping it into 2.5 acres, building houses on some, selling some of the lots, land banking them. But when the economy dropped off the cliff, I couldn't give those lots away. And I ran an ad for over a year in the LA Times that said, custom home sites will trade for anything of value. And my plan was, use what you have to get what you need to get what you want. And I had dirt that I didn't want. I needed cash, so I would trade the lots for anything of value that I could liquidate for cash. And I ended up, it became my 3-step process, and I worked my way out of all of the land, all of the lots, and sold very few of them directly. Most of them were involved in a trade of some sort, and I got a lot of vehicles out of it. I remember I got the big Winnebago with the slipping transmission, but I had a buyer lined up before I took the Winnebago. I got a 6-seater Cessna airplane that was sitting at the Apple Valley Airport with a blown engine. Guy offered that to me to take over the debt on the lot, and then I talked to the mechanic up there, and he said he'd love to buy that, and I ended up selling that for a chunk down, and he made me monthly payments on it for a while, but I now was on the receiving end of payments instead of on the outgoing end of them.
And you learned the art of trading. That's
yes. Oh yes. If I ever had a business card, Bruce, it would definitely say Mike Cantu, horse trader. Let's make a deal.
I had an offer on 2 houses simultaneously in Palm Springs, and it was trading most of the equity position for a 60-foot teak yacht. And I read the offer, and I looked at the guy. I said, I think this will work. And he about fell off his chair.
I picture you with a captain's hat on, Bruce.
I never started the boat.
Well, I ended up with a motorcycle that I tried to start one time, but the Kickstarter kicked back so hard, I think my knee hit my chest, and I got off it and thought, this is a really nice looking motorcycle, but I did not ride it 12 inches.
I didn't want to fill the gas tank on the boat. It was 2,500 gallons, so I thought, nah.
Wow.
I think I'll see if anybody else wants it.
Now, did you at least pose for a picture on it, Bruce?
No, but you know what's interesting? I had offers for people to have it for overnight. So I thought, like, wow, that's interesting. Must be like a fantasy or something. But I never turned it into a rental.
That was the original Airbnb.
That's right. I never really grasped that, but that was true. I could have done that.
Right. You could have been Bruce Airbnb with the boat rental. Well,
oddly enough, I traded that boat for a piece of actually usable real estate and a pile of fine art. And I do mean a pile of fine art.
I imagine that word fine is very subjective.
Yeah, I could tell that it probably was like overappraised when I noticed it was on a pallet in a corner. So I ignored the value added portion of that and decided I just wanted the house. So I don't even know what happened to the art, but it was in fact part of the trade. But I think, where did you get that phrase? Was that originated by you? Take what you have to get what you need to get what you want?
No, Actually, I give credit to Pete Fortunato, and I wrote it down wrong, Bruce. I completely wrote it down wrong, screwed up what he said, took it home, reviewed my notes, believed if Pete could do it, I could do it, and I used that as a business model. And when I shared it with him about 10 years later, he looked at me and said, "That's not what I said."
That's funny.
Okay, what Pete said is, use what you need. Let me get it right. Use what you need to get what you want to get what you need. I think that was it. Okay, he was referring to a piece of real estate. Use what you want, the real estate, to get what you need, a loan, money, to get what you want, the piece of real estate. I believe that's the way it went. Use the real estate to get what you need, the money to buy it, to get the real estate. That was what he was. That's exactly what he said. I don't know if I said it right, but somehow I wrote it down as use what you have to get what you need to get what you want, and that became my mantra for years. And I was really quite embarrassed when Pete said that's not what I said, but I thought, hey, it worked for me.
You know what's funny? This is going to be the end of the story. So about a year ago, somebody asked me to speak in Florida all day, and I said, I really don't want to do that, but I'll tell you what, if I can speak with Pete Fortunato, take half the day, I'll take half the day, I'll do it. And so he agreed to do it. So we got to teach for half a day, which was really cool. And he came to that statement. And when he said it, in my head, I said, oh, he said it wrong.
No, Bruce, not only did I say it wrong, I taught it wrong to a lot of people, and they did very well with it too.
It makes more sense with your version, but I swear to you, when he said it, I immediately thought, oh, he said it wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was dyslexic or whatever I did, but it's benefited a lot of people from my inability to listen correctly.
Yeah. All right, we're at the end of the first segment, and thanks, Mike, for joining us, and we'll pick it up on our next segment. Thank you.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under California DRE License 012-19911, Florida Mortgage Lender License 1577, and NMLS License 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the Hard Money tab.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.